This video is sponsored by me. Read my original novel, Dance of Frozen Death. Link in the description. Greetings, fellow mortals. There are many different problems with The Legend of Korra when it comes to plot, characters, and world building. In a lot of ways, the problems with the series gets forgiven because of the ending moment with Korra and Asumi. And if you think that's a spoiler, I have no idea how you managed to go this long without hearing about it. Because whenever I bring up one of the numerous issues with this series, defenders ask me if I just hate the ending ship. And I do actually support LGBT plus relationships in fiction as long as they're written well enough for me to care about them. So Korra and Asumi can be happy being lesbians out of nowhere. The romance section of this series was broken to begin with, after all. I won't focus on how I would have preferred them to actually build the relationship over the course of 4 seasons. Instead, I want to focus on one of the 500 other issues in this series, because the shipping is far less egregious compared to how they just shattered the lore of this Avatar world.
I can fix that. I can fix that.
Besides the romance, there are so many aspects to criticize about Legend of Korra. Even the first scene where a child can naturally bend all 3 elements without issue is insane. I showed that scene to my wife who loved the original series, and she instantly got mad at it. She refused to watch the series because she cares about internal consistency even more than me, and that's saying something. But she was interested in the idea of the Equalist movement, except she asked me a unique question. Were benders ever shown to be discriminated against in the original series for not having this world's magic system? And the answer is actually no. Not even the Fire Nation discriminated against its own citizens for not being benders. Mei and Ty Lee were well respected as fighters. Kids were not required to be benders to receive an education or anything like that. In fact, it seemed like every firebender was destined to be drafted into the military. So you could argue that the opposite form of discrimination is actually true. Waterbenders at the poles never looked down on warriors without the ability to bend. The actual Earth King of the Earth Kingdom wasn't a bender. In fact, the only nation to keep non-benders completely out of their culture were the airbenders. Isn't that weird to think about?
Really makes you think.
So at least 3 of the nations never showed any signs of discrimination against non-benders. But what about Republic City? Was there a point where there were actual laws being shown to hurt non-benders before the series? No, not really. At worst, illegal gangs were hurting non-benders, illegally, that's why they're gangsters. But that was the weird part. Fire, water, and earthbenders were all working together to harass the populace. Is that really how it would work? Waterbenders and earthbenders were never shown to naturally work together outside of being recruited for a war. And how are the firebenders just accepted into their ranks without any questions? Not even a full lifetime has passed since the end of the war in this world. If anyone should be hated, it would be the firebenders. Imagine if World War II lasted 100 years. Do you think Germans would ever live that down, even if we had an avatar demanding peace? I doubt it. It doesn't really make any sense.
That does not make sense.
I've done a bit of research online, and no exact numbers are ever given, but the census among fans is that at best 30% of the world are benders in this reality, and that's the highest possible number I could find. I could see the actual number being between 20 and 25%. So the Equalist movement doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It feels like the creators just wanted to tell a story of discrimination and didn't think about the past history, the actual numbers, and and the effective rules of the world they were working in. It's effectively just like Velma, except some of the original people came back for this show, and they didn't exactly think through the twist at the end too, so it kind of makes it even worse. It's pretty insane to think about. The Avatar world didn't need this storyline. I could make up a random world right now where this storyline could actually work. 90% of the population has magic. There are 3 brands of magic. Green heals, red creates explosions, blue manipulates time, yellow can create objects like a green lantern ring. The 10% of people without magic are mocked and held out of positions of power. Boom, the Equalist movement makes sense. But it doesn't exactly work in a world where people without the magic system are allowed and encouraged to be warriors and politicians. The writers really should have put some more thought into this.
You're fighting so you can watch everyone around you die. Think, Mark!
But you know what makes a whole lot of sense? Having a group of young firebenders get mad that they're being discriminated against. It would be easy to show laws and regulations in Republic City and across the world discriminating against firebenders. It could even be outright stated that all of this happened after Avatar Aang died. Firebenders are not allowed to use their bending in public. If someone is a known firebender, they would be called fire hazards. Businesses could refuse to hire them and to sell to them. They could be kept out of politics and the police force out of fear of their abilities and out of hatred from the war. People could actively argue that firebenders are hotheads who will burn down everything around them when they get mad. I think it would be a really interesting storyline. There's a reason Amon used burns as a way to hate on benders. There are preconceptions there. Burns are visceral wounds. The writers could show the older generation of citizens actively scarred from their time in the war. Their kids could be afraid from all the stories that they heard. Their grandkids could think that firebenders are naturally more evil than other types of benders. I don't know about you, but this feels like a logical evolution from the last Airbender storyline.
I'm tired of waiting. These 2 men are firebenders!
But fire will spread and destroy everything in its path if one does not have the will to control it.
The people of the world are terrified by the Fire Nation. They don't see our greatness. They hate us.
The writers could actively show the politics of the situation, have the old guard argue out of fear, have a peaceful firebender group wish only for reform, have a rebel firebender group who thinks that they shouldn't be punished for the sins of their ancestors. Water and earthbenders could actively pick fights with firebenders in the streets. Businesses could refuse to sell or hire firebenders, and these actions could be supported by other benders, the gangs, and even a few radical politicians. At the same time, there could be groups from other nations that think any form of discrimination is wrong. The various factions could be feuding with each other at all times. The tension could grow to the point that fights are breaking out in the streets on a daily basis. The nations are talking about taking military action in the neutral zone of Republic City. Instead of having Korra sneak off to the big city alone, have the politicians and metal-bending police force actively recruit her against Tenzin's wishes. Make Tenzin more of a wise monk who knows better than almost everyone. He's not happy that the reincarnation of his father has been trained since childhood for a role that belongs to adults. Traditionally, avatars start their training at the age of 16. He's angered that the White Lotus Order and the politicians forced training on her early. He doesn't think a teenager is ready to deal with these harsh political topics, and he should be right. That's right. I think the key to all of this is to show that Korra is out of her depth, because Aang was out of his depth in this situation. No one, not even a god in human form, can shatter people's hatred and grudges over a short period of time. Korra can be arrogant when she's brought into Republic City with big fanfare, but she quickly realizes that she can't fight willy-nilly. Sometimes different sides start the battles. waterbenders could spray down peaceful firebender protests. More radical firebending groups could burn down warehouses belonging to businesses that discriminated against them, but innocent civilians get hurt in the process. Every time Korra tries to intervene, people assume she's taking sides. Newspapers run headlines about her every day. She and Tenzin scramble to fix things, and they come up with an idea. There is one place which accepts firebenders without discrimination because they need the 3 elements for professional bending. And that is how you make pro-bending key to the plot. Korra is using it as a talking point for peace and forgiveness among the people. This is where you bring in Mako and Bolin. They're known as the most talented benders in the city. Mako is quieter and more reserved in this version because of the discrimination he's faced. But he is determined to face it with his chin up and to never lash out. In contrast, Bolin can instantly change from his goofy self to an angry fighter when someone says anything negative about his fire-bending brother. Asami could get involved because she has an interest in Korra, even though Korra is more interested in Mako right now, but we can at least hint some things here. Asami convinces her father to sponsor the pro-bending team. Instead of dating Mako, she's afraid of him because her mother was killed by a firebender. Mako is apologetic to her, but Bolin is angry that someone would blame Mako for something he didn't do. All the while, Korra tries to channel the peaceful energy and spirituality she's learning from airbending to keep the peace. Get it? Show her grow humble and empathetic as time goes on. Character development. As time goes on, the new Team Avatar bonds. They grow to understand each other. They start working together to stop brawls and riots from breaking out in the streets. Slowly, they start winning over the public. Things seem to be going great until the end of the pro bending tournament. An attack causes a massive explosion in the arena. While many people think that it's because of firebenders, the detonation comes from a hidden outside party. That is the final straw that breaks the camel's back. A civil war breaks out across the city. Troops are called from around the world to help with the riots. Tenzin insists on moving his family, Korra, and her friends away from the chaos. As they are flying away, Korra breaks down crying. Tenzin and her friends comfort her. They tell her that this is not her fault. There isn't a big bad evildoer to defeat this time and save the world. Sometimes everyone is a little bit to blame.
Hey, who left this bowl of onions here?
Korra notices that all of her allies who previously did not get along are now friendly with each other. Excited, she decides to meditate. Using all of her spiritual training over the season, she reaches out for help. Previous avatars surround her. Aang explains the only thing strong enough to help her calm the city so that she can speak to everyone is the avatar state. But Korra doesn't have the training to activate it at will. That's when Korra makes up her mind. Using airbending, Korra rockets herself back to the city. Instead of fighting, she puts herself in harm's way. She focuses on her friends and all of the people hurt during the riots. Surrounded by people attacking her and emotionally distressed, she automatically activates the avatar state and forces all of the aggressors in the city to kneel. Unfortunately, she almost goes completely out of control and destroys everything, but her allies return just in time to shout at her and pull her out of her trance. In a moment of lucidity, she channels every previous avatar. Their voices boom across the city. They chastise everyone who dared encourage this foolishness. Each of them note that things will only get better if everyone listens to each other and gets over their own egos. Then, releasing the avatar state, Korra drops to her knees and begs everyone to stop fighting. No one else needs to get hurt. Stunned by a literal god bowing to them, everyone loses the will to fight.
What would you get out of here?
From there, the ending could be relatively simple. Skip a few days, show people rebuilding, show representatives from around the globe working together to create new laws to help overcome hatred in the world. Korra leads peaceful protests every day, reminding citizens that she's advocating for non-aggression when they are wronged, and that her team will always step in to help them. During the last conversation, Korra notes that she hasn't fixed everything. That can only come with time, and the way to overcome hatred, pain, and grudges is by using understanding and forgiveness. Tenzin is proud of her. Mako speaks up, noting something that's been bothering him ever since the terrorist attack at the tournament. The explosion wasn't caused by firebending. Asami notes that there were no bombs found either. Their scene ends with Bolin making a joke. Hey, it could have been what Avatar Aang used to defeat the Fire Lord. Remember it from history class, Mako? What was it called again? Energy bending? And that is when you cut to the final scene of Hiroshi Sato bowing to a dark spiritual figure. Energy bending rolls down his arms as he notes that they have failed. The dark figure disagrees. All of this was just a test.
And that's all I have to say about that.
And that is how to fix the Equalist movement problem in the first season. I would need to work out the smaller details, but I think this storyline works better than the mess that was the end of season 1. I mean, blood bending outside of a full moon? How did anyone even figure that out? Plus, Korra lost and regained her bending in the course of 5 minutes. That's really lame. You could rework almost every character, including Amon, into a different role for this alternate story. But hey, this is just fanfiction. Maybe I'm taking it a bit too seriously. But what do you think? Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your perspectives. And thank you so much for watching. If you like my takes on storytelling, please consider reading my original novel, Dance of Frozen Death, Book 1 in the Written in Stone series. And my second book, Above Heaven, will be released on May 1st, 2023. I hope that you will check them both out. I appreciate you. Do not despair.